Shedure Sanders generated a ton of buzz in the 2023 season. Most of it was positive, but some of it not so much. As we go into this upcoming season, Sanders is rated as one of the top QBs in the country, a Heisman favorite, and a projected first-round selection in the NFL draft. Today on QB Unfiltered, I take a look at Colorado quarterback Shedure Sanders. This is my take. Okay, Shedure Sanders is a 6'2", 215-pound senior out of Dallas, Texas. Sanders played his high school ball at Trinity Christian High School in the great state of Texas. And as a senior, he was rated as a 4-star recruit who originally committed to Florida Atlantic, but then flipped his commit and signed with Jackson State University when his father, Dion, was named the head coach there. In 2021, as a freshman, Sanders had a great season and was named the Jerry Rice Award winner, which goes to the top freshman football player in, and I've got to read this, the NCAA Division I Football Championship Subdivision, or as we used to call it when I played, 1AA. Following season in 2022, Sanders had another great year, and he was named at the end of the season as the Deacon Jones Trophy Award winner, which goes to the most outstanding player at the HBCU level, or HBCU division, which is historically black colleges and universities. So Shedure Sanders, his first 2 years in college, ripped it up, won back-to-back national awards, and then his father, Dion, was named the head coach at the University of Colorado in what used to be the Pac-12. And Shedure Sanders packed up his Louis Vuittons and they were off to Boulder, Colorado. So last season, 2023, Shedure Sanders threw for 3,230 yards, 27 touchdowns and only 3 picks. That's really good statistical season. And he did all this for Colorado last year with their offense having absolutely zero running game. Their offensive line was not very good. And Colorado's offensive staff put the entire package, their offensive package and scheme, squarely on the shoulders of quarterback Shedure Sanders. And he got beat up a lot, 52 sacks. He was knocked down, sacked 52 times. He was hit a bunch of other times that weren't sacks. He got the ball off and got smacked. Colorado wasn't very good up front. Now, one of the big storylines for Colorado and Shedure Sanders going into the 2024 season is they've got to come up with a run game, or at least give the illusion to defensive coordinators and defensive linemen that they will run the ball. And it doesn't have to be the world's most phenomenal run game. They don't have to be Barry Switzer's Oklahoma Sooners. They just have to show to the defense that they will run it on occasion. Now, what does the running game do for Shedure Sanders? Well, right now and last season in 2023, every team that played Colorado, their defensive linemen in their stance, their asses were up way high in the air. They had all their weight on that hand that was down in the ground, and they had only one thing in mind. That was to try to time that snap count and get upfield. They weren't concerned about any run game coming or anything else. It was pin your ears back, beat that offensive lineman in front of you, or get to your gap. And the number one goal was get in the face of Sanders and knock him on his ass. So the storylines offensively, besides the run game and the other things that will help Colorado out, are RPOs, which they did do last year, and then run a lot more screens. Screens have a huge effect on defensive linemen. And the biggest effect that screens have is when you throw a lot of those, you make defensive linemen run laterally to chase screens down. And those dudes start to get tired out. And it may not show in the first quarter, and it may not show in the second quarter, but I guarantee you, if you run a shitload of screens, those defensive linemen are going to start dragging in the second half. And if you got those guys tired and you've got it in their head now that they got to chase screens, you may have it in your defensive package that you've got one or two defensive linemen that are trying to read for screens, so you get mush rush. All of those things, run game, RPOs, screens, those help out your offensive line with their pass protection. And when the pass protection's helped out, the guy pulling the trigger, Shedure Sanders, he shines. Okay, before we jump into Shedure Sanders' game, I have to explain to you guys out there watching this that it's the 4th of July. Happy 4th, guys. Even though this podcast, this show, this particular episode won't come out for a couple days after the 4th, but it is the 4th. And I'm coming to you from the Southern California desert, and it's about 118 degrees right now. So you're going to see me wiping sweat off of my brow. My face may get a little bit red, but that's what's going on. Okay, let's get into this. This is what I really like about Shedure Sanders' game. Number one, he's really poised when the pocket starts to break down. And I'm telling you, he had to be this way last year because there weren't a whole lot of times where he dropped back to throw, where he was able to throw in rhythm and tempo, where the pocket wasn't breaking down on him. Now, some of the problems were associated with Shedure's feet, which we're going to talk about when we get to what I don't like about his game. But the fact that Colorado just got beat up front a lot, whether it was twists or it was a guy individually getting beat on the snap of the ball, but he was always having to throw off platform. The thing that is really good about his game in this regard is when things start to go bad, his eyes don't come down to the rush. Okay, so he's feeling pressure, peripheral vision, feel it in the pocket, and he's always keeping his eyes downfield. Now, Shedure Sanders is going to pull the ball down when necessary and run, particularly when the Red Sea parts and he's got a freeway down the field. But that's, at the end of the day, he wants to stay behind the line of scrimmage and throw the ball downfield to his receivers. And so as he's moving and negotiating that pocket, his eyes are always staying downfield. And as a result of that, he was able to make some big, big plays last year. Anytime that you break pocket and throw on the run, or break pocket, reset your feet and throw the ball, you're going to have some defensive breakdowns in the secondary. And as you can see on some of these clips, he had guys that were just running wide ass open. And he did a hell of a job with his eyes and, for the most part, his poise. Okay, he's got a really quick release. Now, this is kind of a 50-50 thing with me because his release is quick, but it needs to be, because his ball carriage in a lot of cases is really bad. And I'm talking about when you're in the pocket, you're dropping, you're negotiating the pocket, whatever. Before you've thrown the ball carriage is how you carry the football. Tip of the ball, top of the numbers. So now you can go from here to here, push it up and back, and get it out of your hand. Well, a lot of times Shedure has the ball down at his waist, which we'll talk about here in a second. At the end of the day, his quickness in getting that ball back up, and once he gets it to where it needs to be, he's really fast with that C motion, bringing that thing through and getting it out of his hand. He's got a really quick release. And as I'm going to talk about when we discuss the quick game, okay, catch the snap, stab that back foot in the ground and get the ball out. He's really good at doing that and getting it out on time. Okay, Sanders has some really nice juice in his arm. You know, when he gets his feet set where he can transfer his weight and get everything going the way it should be going, he can really put some gas behind his throws. He can make all the throws. He throws a great deep ball, which I'll talk more about here in a second. He's really good on the intermediate throws, you know, throwing the digs, the deep crossing routes, the corner routes, and then obviously the quick game where he can just zip it out there, you know, to the stick routes and the hitches and the slants. Okay, Sanders is accurate when he throws, you know, when he's, again, I keep coming back to the feet, and when he doesn't have his hips locked to where he's throwing across his body, or he doesn't have his feet jacked up, when he's got everything going the way it should be going, he's really, really accurate. And I keep coming back to the quick game, but when he throws stick routes and when he throws hitch routes, there is a thing with quarterbacks called throwing your receiver open. And what that means is you're putting it on the shoulder away from the nearest defender. And in doing that, your receiver is able to catch the ball and turn it up immediately and get yards after catch. And you watch him throw these stick routes and these hitch routes in their quick game, and he is really, really accurate and really good at throwing his guys open. Okay, so that leads me now to the quick game. This is what I like about Shedure Sanders the most. And I think Colorado does itself a little bit of a disservice by not running more quick game. If you watch a full Colorado game from last year, and you can go on, go online and you can watch, they got a thing called All 22 film where they shoot it from the press box, the side shot, from the press box, all 22 guys in the picture, and then they intercut that with the tight shot from the end zone. But you've got every play that they run on offense throughout a course of a game. If you do that, you will notice that when Colorado runs the quick game, and I'm talking about where Sanders is in the gun, he takes the snap, he stabs that back foot in the ground, and he gets the ball out. I call it GST. Okay. Stick routes, slant routes, hitch routes, throwing bubble screens, punch screens, just catching the snap and getting it out. When he does that, and when Colorado's offense does that, they hum. The offense hums. They catch and run, catch and run, catch and run, and it's just playing catch. And as I said earlier, he does a hell of a job not only getting the ball out on time in the quick game, but throwing his receivers open to where they can catch it and turn it up and run. Okay. And what the quick game does, and why I would like to see Colorado do this more, besides the fact that Shedure Sanders does a great job throwing it, is it takes the pressure off their offensive line and their pass protection. So, I could do a whole show on their pass protection. I think that the technique that they teach their guys is wrong. They do a lot of pass proing on the line of scrimmage. And because they do that, teams twist on them. And because you're pass blocking on the line of scrimmage, offensive linemen are running into each other and getting picked off. Instead of doing the vertical set, which is the way to teach pass protection, where you get depth, you back up on the snap of the ball, and you let stuff develop in front of you so you're able to pass off twists and see who's coming from where, all right? In the quick game, it doesn't really matter how horseshit your pass protection is because you're catching the snap and getting the ball out of your hand. And so when you watch Colorado in a full game, when they run quick game, Shedure's on his feet after he delivers the ball, and it doesn't matter if they get picked off on a twist. It doesn't matter if one of their offensive tackles gets run by on a wind sprint. They can't affect Sanders and his ability to get the ball out, complete the ball, and then move the sticks and move the ball down the field. Okay, another thing I really like about him is he throws a great deep ball. All right, now we talked about the ability to throw the deep ball when we said juice in his arm. When he throws outside verticals, post routes, deep crossing routes, where he's got like a cover zero look where he doesn't have to fit it in between the underneath coverage and deep safeties, where he's just got a receiver running a deep cross against man, cover zero. He puts air underneath those throws, and he throws a nice, soft 3, putting air underneath it, dropping it in the bucket, and letting his receivers go make a play on it. He does a hell of a job throwing deep balls. And then the last thing that I really like about him, and this is pretty much a doy, is he plays with supreme swagger and confidence. And you know that I'm really big on that with quarterbacks. Your starting quarterback has to have it, and it's got to be real, and it's got to be genuine. And to go with that, you got to be a baller. Okay, no fake swagger, no fake confidence. But Shedeur plays very, very confidently. That permeates into the rest of his offensive teammates and probably the defensive guys as well. But he definitely carries himself with a certain attitude on the field and plays that way. And I think that that is a big plus to his game, and it's something that I really like with Shedeur Sanders or any quarterback. Okay, now let's get into what I don't like about Shedeur Sanders' game, and we're going to start with what I always start with, and that's feet. Much like Noah Fafita, Shedeur Sanders' feet they're inconsistent when he's throwing the ball, and so sometimes you'll see him take a traditional drop, open step, crossover, plant, throw. Sometimes you'll see him do this little skip thing where he does open step, and then he instead of crossing over with his second step, he puts it behind and then hits his plant foot. So, I don't know what the deal is there. I don't know if they're teaching that, specifically for him or to him, or they're just letting him do his thing. I don't know. But the inconsistencies with the feet. And then the biggest thing is, at the end of his drop, because he takes that big last step, and this must be something in the water with the quarterback coaches, because a lot of guys do this. They're just not ready to throw the ball at the end of their drop. They've got to either slide the back foot up or they've got to slide the front foot back. The bottom line is they have to get their feet back underneath their shoulders where they should have been in the first place. Now, you're going to see Shedeur Sanders completing balls, and I understand that, guys. That's the name of the game, complete balls when you're throwing. But 2 things on this. Number 1, your offensive passing game is the absolute best when you're able to get the ball to your receivers when they're the most open, which is against man coverage right out of their break, and in zone coverage right as they're clearing a defender or right as they're sliding away from a defender. The point being is there are a bunch of gaps out there in zone coverage and a bunch of grass. But as soon as the defense, in their drops can see the routes that are developing in front of them, they start to converge on the receiver. So it's a situation where we catch and get tackled. As opposed to throwing him when he's the most open, that's when your receiver can catch and run for yards. Okay, the second thing about throwing the ball late, getting the ball out of your hand late for Shedeur, he was sacked 52 times last year. How many of those sacks do you think were a result of him not getting the ball out on time at the end of his drop? Okay, and when you're throwing behind an offensive line that's a little suspect, it's got to be 1-2-3 throw, 1-2-3 hitch throw, 3 quick throw, or in the quick game, GST and throw. But if you're doing stuff with your feet to where you're not getting it out, and I'm talking about split second, that's the difference between getting the ball out of your hand, Shedeur Sanders, or not being able to throw because now you got a guy in your face or you've got a guy swiping his paw at you, and now you got to bail, and your passing game now has broken down. Okay, talked about poor ball carriage. Man, I'm going to show you some clips here where it's like, come on. It's just, and he's throwing touchdowns and he's throwing completions, and I'm sure I got guys out there going, Coach, what the hell are you talking about, man? Well, that kind of sloppy stuff, that's not going to help him when he plays better defensive guys. And I'm talking about when he moves up to the NFL, when those windows are closed faster with cover guys, when the defensive linemen are even faster on that rush. If you've got the ball down at your waist, and even though he is really fast, pushing that sucker up to get it to where it should be, when you move up in competition and the level of defensive guys increases, that little wasted movement of having to push that ball up to where it should have been, that's going to bite him in the ass. And so I just think that he's got some mechanics that need to be tweaked and need to be cleaned up because it's going to help him at the end of the day. Okay, and then the last one, and this probably really disappoints me the most about Shedeur Sanders, and that is him bringing unproductive attention on himself and the Colorado football team by doing stuff on the field that he doesn't need to do. Okay, there were a couple of things that he did this past season that were well documented and that were questionable. I'm not going to get into those. I will talk about the Arizona State situation, though. We're talking about the watch after the game. He's holding up a watch on his wrist on the field in full uniform, a diamond watch to the Arizona State fans. Now, here's the deal with Shedeur Sanders. You're going into somebody else's stadium. You're playing against, obviously, Arizona State, but you've got Arizona State's fans that are on your ass. You're a high-profile player. You're the quarterback. Your dad, Dion, is a high-profile guy. Everybody is going to be in your face the entire game. It's a tight battle. It's a tight game the entire way. Colorado pulls it out at the end, and then Shedeur does this after the game to the Arizona State fans. You don't need to do that. All he needs to do, you just beat their ass on the field. That's the most pain you can inflict. That's the biggest in-your-face moment that you can give those fans sitting in the stands. All Shedeur needed to do is walk off the field. Those guys are giving him the business from the stands. Point at the scoreboard, smile on your face, and keep on walking. And that's it, and that's all. Shedeur's got way too much skill. He's got way too much talent to be doing that other stuff. Okay, so at the end of the day with Shedeur Sanders, he's really skilled. He needs some tweaking in some of the mechanics that he has. We're going to see what happens in 2024. Colorado needs to come up with a running game. Their offensive line needs to be better in pass protection. And, they're moving into the Big 12 conference, which is going to be a step up, I think, especially defensive. I mean, the Pac-12 conference, I played in the Pac-8. I was probably the saddest guy in the world when the Pac-12 sold out and disbanded. and split up and did all this stuff that they did for money. That's a story for another day. But Pac-12 defenses aren't very good. That's why it was fun to watch their games, to watch anybody's games that could throw the ball offensively. For whatever reason, Pac-12 pass defenses are horrible. And the worst team last year in the country had to have been USC, which is amazing to me. USC, the Trojans, and their defense was atrocious. They did some questionable scheme stuff, and their players, wow, they weren't very good. So anyway, Shedeur's stepping up now in competition, and the defenses are going to be a hell of a lot better in the Big 12. So we'll see what happens this year. He's going to have all eyeballs on him. His dad, Dion, has made it that way with their program, and we'll see how he handles it. Hopefully he handles it the right way. Okay, guys, if you like today's show, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think of Shedure Sanders. Let me know what you think about the Colorado Buffaloes. And happy belated 4th of July. This is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.